I looked up from reading the comic book just in time to see a wide section of trees on the hill beyond the pasture just disappear. And then I saw Papa running from the barn to the house. And Papa didn't run. The next thing I knew, he was in the house calling for my mother to help him come shut the door from the room that I was in to the breezeway. The wind was blowing all the doors in the house open. And less than a New York minute later, the tornado touched down in our front yard. And when it lifted up, it took the house with it. I still remember looking up and where the ceiling should have been and seeing limbs and trees hurtling overhead, debris, and hearing that terrible thunderous roar of the storm. And then it was gone. And I mean gone. The storm, the house, and almost everything we own. I still have the little rocking chair that I was sitting in when I was reading my Plastic Man comic book. But the comic book, I'm sure, was counties away by that time. But we were alive and unhurt. The next day, that night, I slept in my great aunt's feather bed, several miles away from the site of the storm. And the next morning, I sat with my aunt on the upturn on the trunk of a torn up pecan tree, uprooted. The same tree that I had swung from just a couple of days before. I've never seen my mother look so sad, or my grandfather so confused. They gave themselves the better part of the next day to feel sorry for themselves, and then they went to work. But Plastic Man never showed up to help. And my 10-year-old self knew the difference even then between fantasy and reality. But I'm convinced that as I look back, that was a pivotal point in my understanding and perception of loss and recovery. I would continue to read and fantasize about my superheroes, but I would never again expect them to show up. Before Plastic Man, they had been Superman. And I suppose most of the boys of my age, fantasized that I too had X-ray vision and could see through buildings, or leap tall buildings in a single bound, and that I too was faster than a speeding bullet. But Plastic Man was more my kind of hero. He didn't dispatch the evil guys with force and violence as much as he did with deception. And because he had all the physical properties of rubber, he could stretch, bend, mold himself into any imaginable shape. And he took care of the bad guys with deception and humor. I loved his corny jokes. But Plastic Man was gone. Not just the comic book, but my disenchantment with superheroes was beginning. Now, today, in my more mature years, I have Marginal Man. I should explain. Marginal Man is my fantasy figure, if you will. He's a shapeshifter. He comes from where most of us live, and that is in the margins. Not very many of us ever take center stage in life, or if we do, it's not for a very long time. But Marginal Man is a shapeshifter. He takes the form and the shape of anyone who, in the margins or otherwise, resists injustice and gives voice to those who are pushed away, overlooked, and discarded. Anyone. And if you, whoever you are, if you do that yourself, to whatever extent, however simple the act, then you become Marginal Man. And I thank you for your service. We live in changing times. I know you've heard that over and over again, and it's been true. Times have always changed. But it seems to me that life is changing so much faster than ever before. I can hardly keep up. Before the storm, Papa plowed his garden with a mule, and the house that was blown away had no indoor plumbing. Today, I'll file away what I am writing in the cloud, whatever that is, and I'll wonder from time to time if our next car will be self-driving. The times are changing so rapidly. Someone has said that today we need to be more ethical than a bot, more reliable than an identity algorithm, and more insightful than a cyborg. Now, I'm not sure I understand all of what that means in technological terms, but I can tell you that I firmly believe that as we grow more powerful, we desperately need to grow more ethical, to take the time and to learn how to reflect on our nature, the world we live in, the people with whom we do business, and that we need to develop new and more powerful ways to love each other, to be compassionate, to stand against the injustice of the world, or the life that we are creating won't be worth living. And I don't believe a tornado, hypothetical or otherwise, can take that away from us. Thank you for listening.